What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Woodward Bets in the house. Sunday morning, talking NFL. Beer and Scott here with you. Scott, as your board says behind you, not the greatest day for Michigan State football yesterday. Ohio State on the board once again here, but wow, what a performance! So let's we'll recap yesterday. But how you doing, my man? Big day of college football yesterday.
Yeah, Chris, it was one of them things. I was all excited at noon. I started cracking my Modelo's, started having some fun, and damn, it was before you knew it. It was like 49 to bagel. I mean, damn. I guess that Michigan State pass defense is a little bit worse than what we thought, but man, Stroud just stepped back there and just he had all day. I can't ever recall watching a game, Chris, where receivers was wide open as they were in that game. I mean, it was almost like those D-backs just gave up. They didn't even care what was going on. So they were either really underprepared and then they just gave up because it looked like they didn't even have a clue what was going on. But we kind of joked yesterday about Charleston Southern playing Georgia, and there was no line on the game, blah, 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 and it ended up being 56-7 in that game, the exact same score as the number 4 and number 7 team playing each other. So, yeah, that was a rough one. But, Chris, I did find some Sparty fans, to pick on. Of course, I was rooting for Sparty, so at that point, I then just turned my alliances and started rooting for 100 points, which, that didn't happen. But, I started texting my Sparty, what the hell's going on? And I suckered a few of them into giving Michigan 30 points next week because there's no way with that Michigan pass rush, Stroud's going to have that much time to sit back there. So that was strength against weakness there with Michigan State and Ohio State. But I lay caution with you Sparty fans. I don't think Stroud's going to have all day to sit back there with that pass rush Michigan has. So that was and two, Ohio State keeps talking about Oregon, Chris. I mean, Thibodeau didn't even play in that game. So they haven't seen a pass rush that like what Michigan has. So that should be interesting. But I'm not saying my Wolves are going to win, but I surely don't think they're going to get beat by 49 points.
No, I think Sparty just got a little bit overwhelmed. I mean, it was just right out of the gate, and then you dig yourself a hole. Your strength is running the ball. You lose that. Obviously, you're down 21, 28, nothing. Takes Kenneth Walker out of the game. The crowd was at a fever pitch, and we saw, maybe this offense isn't good enough. I mean, they just struggled even when you're down 42-0. Like, do something, put something on the board. So they end up getting one touchdown. But about the biggest mismatch I've ever seen. And going back to the betting markets, it's another lesson. We talked about that spread, and we fell for it as well. I mean, how could a number 7 team in the country possibly lose by 19, 20 points? These books are smart. You see a line like that when 99% of people would be like, okay, I'm taking Sparty here. They're at least going to stay close in this game. The books know what they're doing. So just always keep that in the back of your head when you're looking at some of these lines. When they seem off, there's a reason why they are what they are. It doesn't always play out that way, but Scott, we should have known better. Probably a good spot to back the Buckeyes and really fade the public there yesterday.
Yeah, it was. We did fall for it, but hey, live and learn. That's the thing, like you said, we're going to mark it down. We're going to remember that. I mean, there's a lot of different situations where it comes up that you and I have been involved in over the years where you see something, you're like, oh no, I've seen this before and this didn't play out very well. And then when you go against it, and then I was sitting there literally in the middle of that first quarter going, what a dummy. I fell for that shit. Like, damn it. Should have known that the Ohio. I mean, if Cade McNamara can throw for 400, what the hell do we think that kid was going to do again? And the Buckeyes were going to do against him. So, we fell for that one, hook, line, and sinker. But hey, we got NFL Sunday today, Chris. So we're gonna right the ship a little bit today, and we're gonna get us some DFS winners. Maybe you and I will ship a qualifier today, and we're gonna pick some winners here at the end of the show for everybody.
Yeah, before we do that, let's recap what we saw at Michigan as well. I want to cover both the local teams here. A big win, obviously, a commanding win there against Maryland, who one of those teams, can be pesky, can put up points. Tua's little brother at quarterback, very athletic, a good arm. But Scott, Michigan goes in and dominates that game on both sides of the ball. Some big plays offensively. Defense looked great. So it looks like they're peaking at the right time. That's the performance I think most Michigan fans wanted to see going into this game with Ohio State. You're feeling good about your team. They're playing well. They're playing with confidence. They didn't go into Maryland and come out with a 2-point win, a 3-point win. They almost put 60 points on the board. So you got to be feeling very, very good about your Wolverines. I know you spoke about them already about next week, but quite the performance here against Maryland.
Yeah, they look really good. It just seems like they keep bringing out these offensive weapons. That kid from West Bloomfield, Edwards, came out yesterday, had 170 yards, couple touchdowns. So that was good to see. But, really, Chris, the strength of this team is that pass rush. Obviously, I think Hutchinson's got a chance to be the number one pick. If not, he should be in the top 3 next year's draft. So, we'll see what happens this time in this game here coming up with Michigan, Ohio State. It's strength for strength. So we got defensive pass rush against a defense. And we've seen in the past, Chris, when we have trouble with Ohio State is when they have them scrambling quarterbacks. We've always struggled with that. Well, this kid's going to want to sit back in the pocket and think he's going to throw all day. And I got news for him. He's got 2 dudes coming from both sides of the line that are really good. So let's see what happens. I'm not saying Ohio State's going to struggle to score points. I actually think both teams are going to be able to put up some points, but should be interesting. And then let's also not remember, it's very tough to win on the road in the Big Ten. I mean, we've seen, time and time again where you get teams that maybe are small favorites, whatever else, and go on the road, and then they end up losing. But so I think Ohio State's going to have a little trouble, too, going into U of M. And I just want to get it out there, too, as a U of M fan, and you have tickets, and if you sell them to a Buckeye, I'm going to come knocking on your door, and I might have to smack you. Don't do it. Don't do it. We don't want to see any of this red bullshit in our crowd. Don't do it. Please.
Don't do it. There's your warning from Scott. Don't be doing it. So you know it's going to happen.
Make me get that rake out, Chris. I'll get that rake. I can swing that rake now.
You sure? You're feeling a little bit more lumber today? You all right? You feeling good?
Yeah, I'm feeling good today. I'm ready to go. We can play some tackle football today if you want. I'm feeling good.
Did we get any field goal attempts yet?
It's been cold. And now I will say my daughter's boyfriend is the kicker for Belleville football, so I'm going to have to get him to get out there. He's a freshman, has already got offers and everywhere else. So I'm going to get him out there one day with his little tee, and maybe I'll just put some clothes on him, make him look like me, and have him boot one like 50 yards, and then I'll turn around and do some camera work and say, ah, ha, ha. No, I'm just kidding. I think I could still boot one, but when it gets cold, Chris, that ball gets hard. So it's a little tougher to boot it. So we'll see. But I still think I can get out there. But I don't want to have to rip any hammies. I'm getting old. I'd be out for months.
Yeah, we don't need you injured. I mean, you could still sit here and talk sports, so it'll be worth us as the viewers watching it. We'll gladly have you suffer a little bit of injury for a little bit of comedy. That's always the give and take. But let's get into NFL. Scott, a lot of injuries. We'll kind of mix those in. We'll go game by game. I talk about any injuries, anything that have changed since we broke the slate down on Wednesday. If you guys are watching us on YouTube, welcome. Good morning. We appreciate you hanging out here. If you have any questions at all about anything, comments, concerns, things you want to see on the show, whatever it may be, that chat is there for you. So utilize it. I'll be keeping an eye on that as we go. Already got a few people in there. DMAP Zoom says go blue. GOJ says Buckeyes will win by 2 touchdowns. Michigan good this year, but the Buckeyes locked in offensive-wise. I agree. They look pretty much unstoppable. So it's going to be a fun showdown next week. But again, thank you guys for watching. Any questions, get them in there, and we will answer pretty much everyone we can get to. So let's have some fun talking some football. Make sure you're following us on Twitter as well at Woodward Bets. Make sure you're following the network at Woodward Sports. So, Scott, let's dive in here. Again, we'll go game by game on the main slate with things. We'll add any injuries, concerns, things we want to look at betting-wise. So let's start with Minnesota and Green Bay here, our first game on the docket. This one should be fun, Scott. We got a very close spread here. Green Bay -1, a big total as well, 47.5. Now, that's come down a little bit from the open. But as far as injuries, we know Aaron Jones not going to play in this game. That's going to lead to a very, very popular A.J. Dillon here in DFS. In fact, probably one of the most popular running backs we have. We got a lot of cheap running backs we're going to talk about, but he's going to lead the list here, looking like Allen Lazard, doubtful for this game for Green Bay. So outside of Jones, Scott, no major injuries here. So you have the Dillon route. Devontae Adams has owned this Minnesota team, 5 touchdowns against them in 2 games last season. Other side, Jefferson's looked great. Thielen, the touchdown maker, and Dalvin Cook was pretty good against Green Bay last season, 5 touchdowns in those 2 games. So a lot of different routes you can go in this one. How do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, I actually do like this game, as you mentioned, with A.J. Dillon. He's definitely going to be pretty chalky today against the Vikings. But, Chris, I mean, the 2 defensive ends here for Minnesota, Hunter and Pierce are out. So I think Aaron Rodgers is just going to stand back there in a clean pocket. And nobody on Minnesota should be able to cover Davante Adams. So I think Davante Adams is in a really good spot here today. But, yeah, Chris, I think most people are going to be on A.J. Dillon. So I think if you're looking for a little bit of leverage in this game, maybe Davante Adams is the guy to look at here.
I love Dillon. If you're playing cash games, I don't mind locking him in. He's going to get the work. I don't see anyone else on that roster really getting much work behind him. I believe it's Patrick Taylor is the backup running back now for Green Bay. So kind of an unheralded guy. He'll get some carries, but you got to think Dillon's going to be the man. So cash games, yes. Tournaments, I don't think the ownership is high enough where you really have to fade. And running back, the one position, I worry less about ownership. We've seen, chalky running backs carry people $2 million. So I think he's a fine play, but I agree completely. If it's going to lower ownership on Davante Adams, that's where I really want to go. I don't think you even need to necessarily pair him with Aaron Rodgers. We haven't seen huge ceiling games out of Rodgers. So Adams on one side. What about the Minnesota side? I really like the Adams-Cook pairing. Can get expensive, so it's a little easier to pull on FanDuel. DraftKings, it can be tough tying up all that salary, but I think Dalvin Cook in a great spot here. Green Bay's defense has been much improved, but Cook is due for a big game. That may come here today against Green Bay.
Yeah, Green Bay's right in the middle of the pack as far as in the league as far as giving up points to running backs, but yeah, if Minnesota's going to have any sort of chance, they're definitely going to have to give it to Dalvin Cook. But, I'm just kind of looking a lot of times, Chris, I like to look at, home teams and, guys at home a lot of times. And, I was looking, Dalvin Cook has not really done all that well. He hasn't been better at home than he has on the road, especially against the Packers. But the Packers have not allowed a 100-yard rusher this year, but I think the Vikings are going to try to get it to him. But last year in Minnesota, Chris, this game was 43-34, so we did have a track meet in this game last year.
Anything you're liking on the betting market? This thing is that the spread's kind of come down. It opened up Green Bay -2.5. We're down to -1. That really doesn't have much to do with Aaron Jones. We knew he was going to miss this game, so I'm kind of leaning Minnesota here, Scott. Even though I rock my Green Bay hat here, that's my team. They may struggle a little bit here in this game. Minnesota, one of those Jekyll and Hyde teams, you never know. They can look like an NFC powerhouse. The next day they can look like they don't even belong anywhere on the same field. But this line moving towards Minnesota, I'm kind of leaning the Vikings here in this one.
Yeah, Chris, I think in this one here, I'm actually going to lean a little bit on the under. I do see why you would, like the Vikings here. But every week it seems like you're scared to pull the trigger on your team. It seems like you're hesitant. I don't blame you. I'm the same way with my shitty Lions, but your team's much better, obviously. But Chris, the under has hit the last 6 out of 7 times here in Minnesota. I think the Packers might try to run the ball quite a bit. And then you mentioned Dalvin Cook, so if I had to lean anywhere, I'm not a strong lean, but I think I'd lean the under in this game.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that one. Same. This thing opened up 50.5. We're down to 47 at BetMGM, 47.5 at most books, 48 at a few spots. So that has come down as well. So I don't hate that play either. The number, I think we talked about it early in the week. That number seemed a little bit too high. So I don't mind an underplay there as well. So let's move to our next game. We got New Orleans and Philadelphia Eagles -2.5. A low total here, Scott, of 42.5. So injuries here. We know no Alvin Kamara for New Orleans. He will miss this game. So we get another week of Mark Ingram as that lead back for Philadelphia. They get Miles Sanders back. So we add him to the mix here in that backfield, Scott. So now you got Jordan Howard. You got Miles Sanders. You got Boston Scott. So kind of a mess there. So this is one of those games. I don't have a lot out of this game. We also have Taysom Hill questionable here. So Maybe you feel a little bit better about Ingram not having to worry about Taysom Hill, but let's talk Mark Ingram, because I think he'll be one of the most popular plays. A big game last week. He's cheap once again. We know he's going to be involved in the passing game. Are you riding that train this week? I had a little bit of Ingram last week. I don't feel as good about him this week for some reason here against Philadelphia. Even though the matchup's not terrible, I still have my concerns with Mark Ingram.
Yeah, I mean, if it was Kamara, I mean, I think this would be a great spot. Philadelphia gives up the fourth most running back catches so far, 66 so far in the year. But I mean, it just makes you wonder. I mean, how much? That's not really Mark Ingram's strength. Not saying he can't do it, but I mean, Mark Ingram is a just stocky bowling ball type guy that's going to run up the middle, more so than Kamara, who they do like to move around in different formations and throw the ball to him. But for Ingram, I think I'm with you here, Chris. I mean, he's pretty cheap. He's 5,400. We do have some other low end guys, price guys that we can look at. And I think in the past here, these last couple of weeks, we were kind of missing the all these low price guys that have kind of popped up here recently. Some value guys that we can jam in, but yeah, I think in this game here though, Chris, I really do like the Saints here. I don't think the Eagles are that good. And I think the Saints roll the Eagles here. The Eagles are 1-3 at home against the spread, and I'm going to back the Saints here in this game.
I'm on the other side here. I worry about the Saints. Where is the offense going to come from? Again, Trevor Siemian has looked pretty good actually, but how long does that last? So I have concerns with that. They don't really have any wide receivers. We haven't really seen Marquez Callaway live up to the hype. Traquan Smith has returned, really hasn't done much of anything. You don't have Kamara in that lineup. This Philadelphia defense has played all right. Offensively, there's not much I like at DFS here. I'm staying away from that Philadelphia backfield. Hurts always gives you some nice upside, but the Saints defense is so good. So DFS, it's a pretty easy scratch off for me. I guess you can make a case for Ingram. I'm just higher on some other guys than him. So if he's going to be higher owned, I think there's some other spots that we can go to. I guess you can make a case for Adam Troutman, who's getting more involved as a cheap tight end play on DraftKings. But all in all, this game's pretty much a scratch for me. Maybe the defenses are the way to go here. But I do think Philadelphia is a little bit better than you're giving them credit for. They're not great, no doubt. But I don't know that this New Orleans team is very good without Alvin Kamara. We saw him battle in Tennessee, sure, but I think Philadelphia wins this one. It seems like the public is on New Orleans here. I want to be on the other side of that, so I'm going to disagree. I'm going to go Philly here. So we're kind of split on that one. Let's move to our next one. See if we're in line on Baltimore and Chicago. Ravens minus 543.5. Now, this may change, Scott. We got news earlier in the week. Lamar Jackson dealing with an illness, was not COVID. Then we saw him return to practice. Seemed like all was going to be well. Now it comes out last night, Adam Schefter says, looking more like 50-50 for Lamar Jackson today in Chicago. So we saw them add a quarterback off the practice squad. That's generally not a good sign. So this line may change. So this is one. If you want to grab Chicago while you can, get them at a better number, now's probably the time to do it. But what do you think here? Lamar Jackson, does he give it a go? If he does, he's going to be without Hollywood Brown, so he's down a weapon. That should leave Rashad Bateman, Mark Andrews in a good spot. Chicago side, looks like no Allen Robinson here. So some big names missing out of this game, Scott. But I'm still intrigued in this one. With Lamar, I think he's in play here against Chicago. If he doesn't play, I think the Bears defense could be in play along with David Montgomery, who's very cheap over on DraftKings this week. Mute button.
Oh, mute button. See, I had to make you feel better from yesterday. I had to make you feel a little better.
I appreciate it. See, a little teamwork, a little team, yang. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I get excited when you throw it back to me. I get all excited and I just start yapping. And if it wasn't for my damn cat running around here trying to meowing and shit, I wouldn't have to put it on mute. But either way, yeah, Chris, this is a game when I'm looking at my DFS slates I like to cross games off, and without Lamar Jackson and Marquise Brown, this is a game that I think I'm going to cross off. Maybe look at some defenses here, but yeah, this game got ugly real quick, so I'm going to have to keep my ear to the ground here to hear what's going on. But if this game is missing Lamar Jackson, I think the under might be a play here that I might look at. But other than that, Yeah, this one's tough here. I mean, 44 is the over/under at this point. Bears at home. They're missing their star linebacker over there with Khalil Mack. So I mean, this game here just turned ugly real quick. I mean, it's kind of hard to get a gauge on this one without Lamar Jackson and Marquise Brown. And then it's just going to be a rough game, I think, all the way around. Devontae Foreman is another cheap running back we could use, Chris. The first 3 games we've had cheap running backs that we could use in DFS, but I'm not sure if I'm a Devontae Foreman fan either, especially if they don't have Lamar
Well, we'll get
Jackson
there.
to
We'll get there.
help offset him.
We got to talk some Titans and Devontae Foreman. We'll get to him, but
All right, well,
uh,
Freeman, the E's
I
and the
know,
O's, just mix them
I
around.
know, I know. Freeman, and I believe Latavius Murray is back today, so that backfield becomes kind of a mess. I do like David Montgomery here in this spot, super cheap on DraftKings, and Baltimore 12th most fantasy points allowed to running backs this season. So there is a little bit of wiggle room there with Montgomery, a guy that can be involved in the passing game. No Allen Robinson, so Mooney becomes interesting. Even a Cole Kmet, but it looks like he's garnering some pretty decent ownership. It's looking like here, so I like him. But in tournaments, if he's going to be 20%, I think there's other ways that we can go at that position. So I agree with you for the most part, but I do think Montgomery's a play. I think the Chicago defense could be in play here, even without Mac. If there's no Lamar Jackson, I think it could be a struggle. Huntley looked good in the preseason, but to go on the road, start a game, we'll see. So Huntley, maybe he's a play as a cheap quarterback option. But all in all, I think mostly a fade here for this game for you. I like Montgomery and some of those cheaper pass-catching options. I think Bateman, if Lamar Jackson is in, I love Bateman, Andrews, and Lamar here in the spot, and you can run it back with a Mooney or a Montgomery. So anything on the betting lines here, Scott? Do you want to jump on this before we get that Lamar Jackson news, or are you leaving this one alone?
Yeah, I think I would jump on the under before the Lamar Jackson news, but other than that, yeah, I'm leaving this one alone.
Yeah, it's dipped to, let's see, 43.5 at FanDuel and DraftKings. So it's already on the move. Probably falls even further down to 43 at Bet Rivers. So this one's sinking fast, probably falls to 41, I would imagine, if Lamar is out. Any weather in this one? I didn't see anything. We know the Midwest, no rain or anything. There's some rain, or no snow, I mean. There are some games there's going to be some rain. We'll get to the Detroit-Cleveland game, obviously, some rain there. Looks like it may rain in Tennessee as well, and possibly in Buffalo. So no major snow or anything to worry about in this one. Next one, Scott, we got San Francisco and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Niners minus 6.5, 45.5 on that total. So this one, we know Elijah Mitchell looking doubtful. So fire up Jeff Wilson Jr. In your season-long leagues with confidence. DFS, I think, is a phenomenal play as well. Very cheap on both FanDuel and DraftKings. James Robinson is questionable here for Jacksonville. Sounds like he's going to give it a go, though. He's expected to play. So if you're waiting on Robinson news, you're good to go there. I know there was some worry about Deebo Samuel. He is fine in this game as well. So really only missing Elijah Mitchell here pretty much from the full-time starters. So, Scott, thoughts here? I think you were on a steamroll of the Niners here earlier in the week. Has that changed for you as we get closer to the game here?
No, it has not changed. I really like the 49ers today. You might even hear me mention them here at the end of the show today. But I really like Jeff Wilson. I know I had him on a couple of my season-long teams in the wings here, picked him up on the waiver wire. As we said, make sure you're always active on your waiver wire, because now here I'm sitting here with a legit bell cow on a pretty good running team, which I do like. And Wilson last year, he had 126 carries, 600 yards, 7 touchdowns, almost 5 yards per carry. So I do like him, Chris. I think he has RB1 upside here today in this matchup. But man, Chris, every time I'm watching San Francisco, it's hard to ignore Deebo Samuel. This guy has just been amazing so far this year. Just somebody that's just quietly been one of the best wide receivers. Jacksonville's led up the 10th most fantasy points to tight ends too. So Chris, I think George Kittle could be in play today. But I like a few of the pieces here on the San Francisco offense. And as far as the Jags go, I'm not really interested here. They're going to be missing James Robinson. Jamal Agnew, ex-Lions, been a guy that looks like he's been getting featured kind of in like a gadget type role that Urban Meyer has liked to use in his past years. But Yeah, for me here, I think I definitely fire up some Jeff Wilson, as you mentioned, with a lot of confidence. And then I do like a little bit of Samuel and Kittle as well.
Yeah, I think San Francisco's the way to go in DFS. I love Wilson. I think, again, a cash game play. I think in tournaments, I'm going there as well. He looked great last week. And remember, this is a guy hasn't played, so doesn't have this whole season outside of last week. So there's not a lot of tread on those tires. So he's fresh. He looked explosive. It's a good matchup. Jacksonville side, it's really tough to trust anything. Dan Arnold's been solid as a cheaper tight end play. You mentioned Agnew. Really tough to plug him into lineups, feel good about. He's been good. But what's the upside there? We really haven't seen anything out of Shenault or Marvin Jones recently. James Robinson, a tough spot here if they're playing from behind. So I agree. I like a lot of the pieces on the San Francisco side, but betting wise, I think Jacksonville keeps us close. I was wavering on this on the show the other day. I think they will stay competitive here. I wonder why this thing hasn't gone up higher. This is one of those spreads. This looks like a mismatch here. Why is it sitting at 6.5 on the line? Probably should be 7. That will make most people probably flock to San Francisco. So once again, I'm going to fade the public and hope Jacksonville can keep this close and roll with them at 6.5. So we got some people sounding off in the chat. Ryan Sigler, D-Map talking about Chicago, San Francisco getting the win, asking about Dallas. We'll get to that one, D-Map. We had a question from 80. I'm just going to call him 80. You got to narrow it down a little bit. He basically gave us almost his whole lineup here. Now, I don't mind helping somebody out, but we gotta get it down to a couple names in there, my man, and we'll decide. Give us 2 or 3, and we can give us our input on that. I mean, he's got a lot of great names on that list, Scott. So we need him to narrow that thing down a little bit, and then we'll give him a hand on that thing. So appreciate the chat.
If you look at that question, Chris, I mean, there's some pretty obvious ones. You should be playing Connor, that's for sure. James Taylor, Jonathan Taylor is another guy you should always probably be playing. And then Tyreek Hill's in the game with the highest over/under. I mean, there's some of those ones that are going to be a little bit easier there to decipher. But yeah, you got to fire up James Conner. I mean, that's a no-brainer.
Well, we may have some news in that game that may put a little damper on the James Conner party. But out of those names, Dalvin Cook for sure, Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs, no doubt. So, and Derek Marie coming in the chat saying Michigan 38 to Ohio State 21. So everybody's sounding off on their predictions for next weekend. It's not even my team, but I'm excited to see that game next weekend, no doubt. But let's push forward here with the NFL. We got the Lions up next, Scott, traveling to Cleveland. 13-point spread here, 42.5 on this total. Jared Goff officially ruled out as of about 20 minutes ago. So Tim Boyle getting the start here for the Lions. Looks like rainy weather. Could be nasty here in Cleveland. The Browns get Nick Chubb back. Thoughts here? I was backing the Lions earlier in the week. We'll see if I'm going to continue to do that, but I want to toss it to you here. Your team here. Any shot, any excitement for Tim Boyle, or they just get rolled here by the Browns?
Man, Chris, I've been watching, as well as anybody, Tim Boyle is the human victory cigar. I mean, I think the only plays he's got in the NFL is him kneeling down. So, I've been kind of laughing at that. So, hey, I don't know if he's going to get the chance to have any kneel downs today in the victory formation. But, we'll have to see. There really isn't too much out. I know you said you were kind of interested to see Mr. Boyle come out there today. But, man, unless the Lions can even come close to stopping this running game here for Cleveland, I just think Nick Chubb is going to have his way today running up and down the field. I don't see any way the Lions are going to stop that. And quite frankly, that defense, Myles Garrett and the rest of them over there in Cleveland, I think are going to give Tim Boyle a lot of issues here today. So I'm not really a fan of any of these Lions guys offensively. I know a few people are talking about Swift, but no thank you. But Chubb for me today is a guy that I'm going to fire up. And he probably will be really high owned, but rightfully so.
Yeah, we have a lot of secondary injuries as well. Donovan Peoples-Jones is questionable. Jamal Williams is questionable. So names that you're probably not playing in DFS, but maybe in season long, you're looking at him. You also have Jarvis Landry sounding off. He wants the ball more. So maybe you play the squeaky wheel narrative there. But I'm pretty much with you on this game. I like Nick Chubb. I like him paired with the Cleveland defense. There's going to be some turnovers. As much as I want to see Tim Boyle succeed, in this one. Tough spot here on the road. Weather, your first start. I mean, it's asking a lot of this guy. So I'm backing off a little bit on this Lions prediction. Probably a game I'll just stay away from. I do think they'll hang in this game. I do think they'll stay competitive. I think Swift will find some success. That being said, I don't want to pay his price on DFS. I think there's better options that we're going to talk about here coming up in that price range. But I do like Nick Chubb a lot. I wonder how involved Ernest Johnson is going to be here in this one. Does that eat into Chubb too much? We know he's going to be involved if he's playing that Kareem Hunt role, but we've seen Chubb succeed even with another running back there. So that pairing I like a lot. Pretty much everything else I'll stay away from here. So Scott, you going the big line here with Cleveland? Are you touching this total with potential weather? Or are you just leaving this one alone?
I'm leaving this one alone. I do think it's a lot of points. My betting instincts are telling me that the Lions are decent play, but I just can't do it. 58% of the money is coming in on the Lions so far on this play here. But Chris, I just to me, I just think if I'm in Cleveland, I think I'd be kind of chiming up that we need to score 44 points and send these two Michigan teams back up across that border, scoring 100 on us. So I wouldn't doubt if that's the case here today, and the Browns run it up. I just that was yesterday. I still just keep thinking to myself, we got two Michigan teams going down to Ohio. Let's see how we do. In the first one, we got our ass beat. But, I think this one here is going to be ugly as well. I think the Browns see this spot here as a get-right spot, and I think the Browns take advantage today.
All right, I'm gonna go Lions here. Well, it's not gonna make my best bets. I'll tell you that right now. We got Troy in the chat also agreeing Lions cover here. I do think they'll stay competitive, but not a game I want to wager my money on. That's for sure. If I'm in one of those things where you got to pick all the games, I'm picking the Lions with the points. When I'm stepping up to the betting window, certainly not laying them USD on the counter for the Detroit Lions here. Just too tough to trust, but I do think they'll stay competitive here. So we'll see what Tim Boyle can do. It gives us something to talk about here next week. All right, next game, Washington and Carolina. Panthers -3.5, another low total at 42.5 in this one. Big news here, Scott. Obviously, we've talked about it all week long. Cam Newton back under center for the Carolina Panthers. Injury-wise, nothing major in this game that we haven't already talked about. Sounds like McLaurin, Gibson good to go. I know they were questionable earlier in the week. The tight end position for Washington going to be a little bit thin with no Logan Thomas, no Ricky Seals-Jones. So potential there with Mr. John Bates, just 2,500 on DraftKings. Obviously, McCaffrey is a guy we always have to talk about. So let's start with Cam Newton, 5,100 on DraftKings. Rates out pretty well in most projection models. Are you trusting Cam here in this spot against his former coach, Ron Rivera?
Well, that's the difference there between the two sites, as we kind of talked about earlier in the week. At 5,100 on DK, I mean, that's just so cheap of a price. I mean, you get the pay dirt and you get to value if McCaffrey rips off a couple screens for you. So I don't have a problem. But over on FanDuel, they do have him priced up a little bit more. So as we mentioned, not sure if anybody is going to click that button over there for Cam. I think you're going to get Cam pretty low owned on FanDuel, but on DK, I think he's going to be really, really popular. But I don't mind it at all, especially like we mentioned on DK. But yeah, I don't know if the upside's there per se, but we'll see if I can't say it's got Mahomes upside, something like that. But I mean, Cam can run one in. We do like quarterbacks that run them in. So I think it's just tough if, not seeing Cam work with any of these receivers, like who do you pair him with? But I guess if I was going to pair him with anybody, it'd just be McCaffrey and I'd move on.
Yeah, I want to like DJ Moore. He's super cheap on DraftKings. I think it's his lowest price all season. I mean, this guy was so good earlier in the year. We just haven't seen it lately. But is Cam going to elevate these wide receivers? I guess that's the worry. He wants to run a lot. Is he going to steal opportunities from McCaffrey? That makes me worry a little bit on McCaffrey. We know he's going to get his receptions, but the touchdown equity kind of falls. Other side of the ball, tough to really trust anybody here. Heineke's been good. McLaurin's been good in spots. Gibson, they're always working in McKissick. You never really know what kind of workload he's going to get. So a lot of questions on that side of the ball. So that being said, I really like Carolina in this spot. I wish it was 3. sitting at 3.5 in most spots, but I think their defense still legit. I think they can keep this Washington offense down. So I'm going with Carolina in this one, Scott. You got any leans here in the betting markets?
Yeah, I gotta agree with you. I really like Carolina as well. Carolina is second in the NFL in sack rate, number 3 in the quarterback hit rate, 19%. So I think it's going to be a major problem here for Washington in this passing game here. So I'm not really interested in anything on that side of the ball, but I do have an interest in the Carolina defense and then possibly pairing them up with McCaffrey. As we all know, I like to pair up my defense with running backs.
All right, let's move to our next game, Buffalo and Indianapolis. This one should be fun. We got Buffalo -7, pretty much at every book out there. Total sitting at 49.5 at most books here. So, Scott, this one should be fun. We have the Buffalo Bills back, coming off that big performance last week between Allen and Diggs. Won a lot of people a lot of money last week. We saw Matt Breida kind of get worked in, so it's a three-headed monster there at running back. Other side, it's been the Jonathan Taylor show, but tough matchup here with this Buffalo Bills defense. So this one intriguing, should be fun. How are we attacking it in fantasy land?
Yeah, it definitely should be fun. I mean, Jonathan Taylor's had, touch counts pretty much close to 20, 27, 21, 19, 21 his last 4 games. He's had 120 yards in his last 5 of 6 games. But, Chris, as you mentioned, this Buffalo defense is just really tough. They're tough against quarterbacks, tough against wide receivers. So I think it's going to be a pretty tough game here for the Colts. I mean, Buffalo's given up the fewest points, fantasy points to quarterbacks. So I don't really see any kind of upside here. I think this is a game here I'd rather either play the running backs, maybe like a Dawson Knox who just returned. But I think it's tough here. I mean, this is a tough game as far as, getting kind of any upside, as I was mentioning here. But I think this is a game I'm going to sit back and watch and just enjoy and probably not have too many pieces of this as far as DFS.
See, I love the Buffalo passing game. That hasn't changed. We talked about this on Wednesday. This is a great spot for Josh Allen, for Diggs once again. Now, I know they're expensive, but Indianapolis, 4th most fantasy points allowed to the quarterback position, 4th most fantasy points allowed to wide receivers. That really hasn't changed here over the last couple of weeks. They've been just as bad. So this Buffalo team loves to throw the ball, so you can easily pass on those running backs. Even in your season-long leagues, there's probably better plays than the Mosses, Singletaries of the world. I mean, if you're really desperate, you need to go that route, okay, but I'd rather play the Foremans, the Jeff Wilsons, the A.J. Dillons of the world over those guys. So if you're torn on them, go ahead and throw it in the chat if that's one of your debates, but I like this passing game, Scott, led by Josh Allen. Other side, that's where I struggle. Michael Pittman going to be paired up with Tre'Davious White for a lot of the game. I don't put a ton of stock in that, but he is one of the guys you worry about a little bit. Jonathan Taylor against this Buffalo run D. That's not a great matchup here. Buffalo pretty good against the run. In fact, 3rd fewest fantasy points allowed to that position. So it's a battle of, the rock and the hard place. Jonathan Taylor's been damn good. This Buffalo defense has been damn good. Which one gives? I think Buffalo's defense wins the battle here. So that being said, I like the Bills -7 here on the spread. I know the Colts are getting a lot of support in the betting markets, but give me Buffalo here, Scott. Agree, disagree? You're rolling with the Colts here. You're leaving this one alone.
Yeah, I'll roll with Buffalo in this spot here. I'll take the home team -7 in the spot here. I don't mind backing Buffalo here in this spot. I worry that Jonathan Taylor, they might control the clock, slow it down a little bit, but you're right. I mean, this Buffalo passing game is pretty good. The Indy has struggled, and I think Buffalo's defense will keep Indy in check. So I don't mind giving the 7 points here.
All right, next one, another big spread. We got Houston and Tennessee. Titans -10 here, 44.5 on the total. Scott, does Houston have any chance? We'll keep this one very simplistic. No Derrick Henry, obviously, on the other side. And you have Adrian Peterson. You also have Deonta Foreman, who rolled up last week and got a bunch of work. So guess my question is, do we trust Deonta Foreman enough in DFS? It's kind of it feels like Ramondre Stevenson from last week, where you want to play him. He's cheap. He's in a great spot. does he get enough work though to be at the level of AJ Dillon, of Jeff Wilson, of some of these other guys? So Foreman, a guy I want to play him. I think he's in a great spot here. I do think they prefer him over Adrian Peterson. Do you agree, disagree? Where do you come out here on Deonta Foreman? Let's start there here.
I mean, he is leading the running backs there in snaps, touches, total yards here the last couple weeks. So, I mean, this is a revenge game too. He was drafted by the Texans, so and then he tore his Achilles in 2018. But I think Foreman's going to be he's going to be fired up, ready to go here. So yeah, I don't mind using him here in this spot at all. Only 5 defenses have given up more points to running backs than the Lovie Smith and them Texans. So I think you could fire out Foreman here today and actually feel pretty good about it.
All right, I'm gonna check some props on him. That's always a good way to see, what's Vegas thinking about his role. So while I do that, Scott, what do you think about the rest of this game here? Houston, it's pretty easy. Do you want to play Brandon Cooks or not? I don't see any other options on that side of the ball. Tennessee-wise, if you're not going the running game, Tannehill is yet to have that massive game. A.J. Brown in a classic bounce-back spot here. We've seen Marcus Johnson be a viable, cheap receiver. So out of all those pieces, anything stand out? I know there's going to be some rain in this game, so maybe it gets ugly here and they do lean on the running game. But thoughts on the rest of this game while I look up some Foreman props?
Yeah, Marcus Johnson's interesting, being the clear-cut number 2 wideout here for Tennessee. He's played 63% of the snaps, had 5 catches, 100 yards. He is a journeyman. He's on his 4th pro team, but hey, he's going to get he's getting the opportunities here as a number 2 guy. So I don't mind him as maybe a potential low-owned type guy in DFS, pretty cheap guy. The Texans here also yield quite a bit of points to the fantasy tight ends, but I just can't buy into Swain or Fursker or anybody like that here. So, yeah, I think really anybody on Houston is just too tough for me to play. I'm not interested with Tyrod Taylor or Cooks or anybody like that. But, yeah, definitely like Foreman here, and definitely don't mind Marcus Johnson as a low-end price guy here. But I'm just curious to see, do we really expect Tennessee to come out, throw the ball? Do we expect the Texans to put up any kind of points? I don't really think so. So I think this is going to be kind of a slow-paced game. I think they're going to run the ball quite a bit, and I don't mind the under here in this game either.
Yeah, I like an underplay here as well. You just worry about does Tennessee really roll up the score here. I think you brought up a great stat on our Wednesday show. Tennessee or Houston's last 4 road games, they haven't cracked 10 points. So the under seems to be in play, but we know this Tennessee team could put up 31, 38 points. So to me, I think the better play is probably just laying the 10 with the Titans here, and then they could score as many as they want, and you're not worried about it. As far as the props go, Deonta Foreman plus 100 in the FanDuel Sportsbook to score a touchdown. So basically you're getting even money on that bet. It's pretty good odds. A.J. Brown minus 130. So Vegas feeling pretty good about him scoring a touchdown. As far as rushing props go, 57.5 is where they have the over-under set at Deonta Foreman. So it's pretty good number, Scott. I mean, he's not going to be an 80-yard guy in the prop market, and they have Adrian Peterson down at 31.5. So I think Foreman – that helps my optimism here on Foreman. I'm feeling a little bit better, and I don't even hate an under on Adrian Peterson. The worry is they could work both of these guys and just run the ball. So that's what has me worried a little bit about A.J. Brown. Is there enough upside? Are they going to need him here? But I do think he bounces back. But I really like the Titans here in this spot to cover that 10 points. All right, next game, kind of another ugly one. Our last game here in the early window, we got Miami and the Jets. Dolphins 3.5-point favorites here, middling total at 45.5. So Scott, I like a lot of Dolphins here, so call me crazy, but I think this is a decent spot for if you want to do a double stack with Tua, with Jalen Waddle, Mike Gesicki. I think those guys are both in play, but I really like Myles Gaskin here, and I think he's the forgotten cheap running back. Everyone's excited about Dillon. Everyone's excited about Jeff Wilson. They're going to garner a ton of ownership. Mark Ingram. There's these other guys in that same price range. Foreman. I spoke about David Montgomery earlier, and mainly Myles Gaskin that feel like the 3 cheap guys that nobody wants to play this week. So I love this spot for Gaskin. 17 rushing touchdowns allowed by the Jets. Most fantasy points by far. I know he's been terrible, but he's a guy I'm kind of planting my flag on this week. And hopefully it doesn't blow up in my face.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously know the Jets defense is so bad against the running backs. Over 9 games, Chris, they've allowed 20 touchdowns,
It's
17 on the
nuts.
ground. I mean, it's just crazy. So you're right. I mean, Myles Gaskin, I mean, you got to think about the guy. But Gesicki's another guy, too, that I really like. He hasn't scored on the road yet this year, but I think he gets it done today. And I do like Gesicki and definitely like me some Myles Gaskin today. I even think Myles Gaskins could catch a couple balls, which he's been doing a little bit more here recently than he has in the past. So I do like Myles Gaskin. I think he's the top play here. And then also don't mind firing up a little bit of this Jets defense here, or Miami defense today, too. I think the Jets are just obviously one of the worst teams, but I mean, 17 touchdowns on the ground, Chris. That's just absolutely ridiculous in 9 games. So, I mean, Myles Gaskin, I mean, what's that touchdown prop? I mean, that almost seems like that's something
Minus
we want to look at.
110. Minus 110.
Right.
So that ain't bad. You're paying normal juice for a Myles Gaskin touchdown. There's no Malcolm Brown. So Salvin Ahmad's really the only other running back. Tua doesn't run it a ton. So I don't mind that bet. Now the rushing prop makes me worry a little bit here. It's 48.5 for Myles Gaskin. So we know he hasn't gotten it done with his about 1.9 yards per carry here over the last 2 weeks. So that a little bit concerning, but his role in the passing game will be there. We mentioned they're kind of thin. No Devontae Parker, no Will Fuller. So and against this team that gives up a ton of touchdowns, couple touchdowns, you're making hay on this Myles Gaskin salary. So I'm not going to back off on that. I think an over even on those rushing yards make a lot of sense, and I do like that minus 110 on his touchdown prop. So as far as bets go, Scott, anything here? That 3.5 always makes it interesting. It did tick up from 2.5. Total has dropped a little bit, but I'm kind of feeling an overplay on this one. I mean, I think Miami will find success. The Jets with Joe Flacco now as their quarterback, he's not any worse than what they've been rolling out there. And this Miami defense, sure, they look good against Baltimore, but I think the Jets could put up some points here. So I kind of like the over in this one, as ugly as it may sound.
Yeah, it definitely sounds ugly. The last 5 out of 6, Chris, in this series have gone under. The Dolphins actually too have covered the last 6 out of 7 meetings. They're 6-0-1 against these Jets. If I was just going to bet anything here on this game, Chris, I'd just roll with the Dolphins. Feel safe about it. Especially, I like betting on teams that we know have a clear advantage in the run game. So I think the Dolphins here for me. Yeah, that hook does suck, and do not buy the hook. I've had people ask
No,
me, you pay
never.
the double juice on the hook? No, 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 no. I don't ever do that. Don't ever do that. I mean, over the long run plus even, it's just that does not work out. So do not buy that hook. But yeah, I think I would just go with the Dolphins here, Chris.
All right, let's move on to the afternoon games. We have 3 games in the 4:30 window here. Let's start with Cincinnati and Las Vegas. Bengals minus 1.5, 50.5 on the total. And Scott, I love this game. I know a lot of people are excited about this Dallas-Kansas City game. We're going to talk about that here momentarily, but this is the game where I'm finding myself doing the most stacking, double stacking, and you can use it on both sides. I mean, Joe Burrow paired with Jamar Chase, T. Higgins is still cheap. If you want to work Boyd in there in a DraftKings, okay, I wouldn't stack 3 of them. You can go the other side. Derek Carr paired with Hunter Renfrow, Darren Waller. You can run it back with any of those receivers. I also love Joe Mixon here in this spot. So any lineups I'm not using the passing game, I'm firing up Mixon. So, Scott, this is a game I'm going to have a lot of exposure to. It's a close spread. It's a high total. It's 2 defenses that can give up a ton of production. So this is my targeted game here, more so than Kansas City, Dallas. I think everyone's on that one. I want to kind of position myself in this game and hope it works out. So agree, disagree, want to talk me off the ledge here? What are your thoughts here on this one?
I do like what you're thinking, but I think there's one guy you missed on, and that's CJ Uzama. I mean, man, Vegas has just been god awful against tight ends. They actually ranked 31st in the league. So I do like some CJ Uzama. Joe Mixon is another guy that I'm going to try to squeeze into my lineups. But Chris, with so many value running backs today, I mean, it's been just pretty tough. But the Raiders have been pretty good against wide receivers. They've only allowed 7 scores to wide receivers, and 2 of them came to Tyreek Hill last week. So They've been pretty tough against the wide receivers, but I think this is a game here you're going to see Mixon and some Uzama, and then we already know that this Las Vegas team, ever since Gruden left, they've been throwing the ball quite a bit, a lot more play action than they had been using in the past. So I think this game definitely has potential to be one of the highest scoring games on the slate. I know we're going to get to one here that everybody pretty much believes will be the highest scoring, but I think this one has a chance to outscore that Kansas City Dallas game. So I don't mind that here. Darren Waller is a guy, Chris, that is interesting here. I mean, the guy started out the season on just such a high, I mean, he was just on such a high. I mean, damn, that first game he had 19 targets or something like that. But he just hasn't been the same here recently. So we're going to have to see what goes on. I think they're going to have to get Waller involved a little bit more here today if they're going to have a chance. But definitely like Uzama and definitely like Mixon in this spot.
Yeah, I like the Azuma call. It's just tough to push that button, man. He's had some big games. He's also had some games where he disappears. You're not wrong, though. The Raiders terrible against tight ends. He tends to have a good game, looks like every about third game. So he's probably due for a big game, but he's just down the line for me on those pass catchers. But I guess if you don't go that route, you stack a different game, you need a cheap tight end. He certainly fits the bill. I agree with your Darren Waller call. I think he is one of the run it back options on those Cincinnati stacks. Renfro also has become their wide receiver one on DraftKings. This guy just continues to get it done, and that price not indicative of that. So when we say run it back, stacks, some of these things, if you guys have questions on what we're talking about, please don't be afraid to fire it up. But basically you're correlating. You know, you want your quarterback paired with pass catchers, then you're getting double the points. Joe Burrow throws a touchdown to C.J. Uzama, you're getting 2 touchdowns out of that play. And if Cincinnati's doing well, it's going to force the Vegas Raiders to throw the ball a little bit more. So that's why you want plays on the other side. So kind of a simplistic way to look at it. There's obviously a lot more to it, but just wanted to get that out there for anyone that may be new, joining us, playing some DFS. No question is silly here. So you could be a day one DFSer. We want to help break things down for you there as well. So please feel free to ask any questions. So, all right, a lot of plays we like here, Scott. Both teams should succeed on offense. Does that lead us to an overplay here?
Yeah, if I'm leaning anyway, I definitely would lean the over here in this spot. 58% of the money is coming in on the Bengals against the spread. This one started at 49 but bumped up to 50.5. I think the over here is definitely in play here. Especially, I mean, they're out in Vegas. I mean, we kind of talk about too, Chris, the going out to Vegas and, you know, obviously all the temptations and everything that are there. And I think this game here definitely has potential to shoot out, especially Cincinnati's defense has given up the 4th most receptions to wide receivers. So as you mentioned with Renfro and Waller, I think this game here is going to be a game where you're going to see the quarterbacks dropping back quite a bit.
Yeah, I'd lean an overplay here as well. These two teams have not been great against the number. Both are 4-5 against the spread. So I think there will be points in this one. So I'm leaning it over here as well. Next game, Dallas and Kansas City. Chiefs -2.5 here. That total continues to go up, Scott. We're looking at 55.5, 56 in some places. So this is the game a lot of people are going to be targeting. The big news, a little bit on each side. No Amari Cooper for Dallas here this week. So a lot of CeeDee Lamb, a lot of Michael Gallup. Other side, Clyde Edwards-Helaire expected to return here for the Kansas City Chiefs. So they get another weapon back. So this is the game. So my questions, A, who do you like in this game? But B, if everybody's stacking this one, how do you get a little bit different here? You don't want to just ride the way everybody else is riding. You're going to have the Mahomes, Hill, Kelsey stacks. You're going to have Dak, Amari, Gallup stacks. How can you get different in this game?
Yeah, I mean, to be different in this game, you could just go with Ezekiel Elliott here and hope that he has himself a day. But Chris, I do think, I mean, this game here does definitely have the potential to shoot out. But I mean, defensive-wise, Dallas has been pretty tough against against wide receivers. They have not allowed more than 2 passing touchdowns since Week 5. But I think this game here could. I actually am leaning the under here, Chris. To be honest, I think both defenses are a little bit better than everybody thinks. So for me, I think I'm going to roll with the under in this game.
Yeah, I like the under here as well. It's kind of scary. You know, everyone's thinking fireworks. This game's going to have 1,000 points and stack left, right. And I think the way to be different here is to not be as excited about this game as everybody else. It's as simple as that. I mean, how many lineups are you going to see with this game stacked? All the cheap running backs kind of saving up some of the salary. That's going to be the standard build here this week. Double stacks of this game with Dillon, with Ingram, with some of those cheap Jeff Wilson. So you have to get a little bit different. So maybe going with some of these expensive running backs, Scott. We talked about Mixon, McCaffrey's, Dalvin Cook's, and finding some cheap receivers to play instead. Just getting yourself a different build than what the general public's going to do. We talk about that all the time. That's one way to be different here. So I agree. I actually really like the under on this game, as scary as that sounds. That's the way I'm going to roll. I like your Zeke play. I think the running backs for Kansas City, kind of tough to pull the trigger there, just not knowing who it's going to be. Maybe you take a chance on Clyde Edwards-Helaire. If you're running out a ton of lineups, I wouldn't do that with one or two lineups, but he could be a way to go. And I think Dalton Schultz could be a guy that kind of re-enters the equation here. We've kind of forgotten about him after a hot start, but no Cooper. Gallup will be popular as a cheap wide receiver play. Schultz doesn't look like he's garnering much ownership at all. So kind of in the same vein as your Ozuma call, I think Dalton Schultz fits the bill. So Tev Sauce is in the chat. Want to know, is DraftKings a weekly draft? Yeah, you just set the lineup for today, Tev Sauce. It's everyone's got salaries, and it's just for today. So it's not a draft that continues on throughout the season. It's just a fun way to play. So obviously the best players are the most expensive. So you try to find the best values on the board, looking through the pricing, but give it a shot. You got any other questions? Please don't hesitate to reach out to either of us.
I'd add to that too. Tev Sauce, if you're new and you want to get in there on FanDuel, they're both, pretty much the same kind of philosophies. You have to, draft it, you get to pick your team every week. But if you want to get in there on FanDuel, anything less than $3, us Sharks can't, if you want to call us Sharks, we can't get in there and play. Like, they limit us. So I can't get in there on FanDuel and play $2 games. I can't play $1 games. So if you want to get it in there, get your feet wet, go ahead and play in those contests. Maybe get in some single entry contests, maybe even some 3-man contests, just to kind of get your feet wet. But just keep that in mind, you guys. If you feel like, hey, I don't want to match up against these guys that have been playing, they're Sharks, they know what they're doing, get in there in the less than $3. It's a good way to start.
Yep, and there's buy-ins all over the place. Start at $1, $2, like Scott says. And there's $3 tournaments with big payouts. Everybody wants that $1 million payout. The key thing with DFS is asking yourself, what kind of player do you want to be? Is it just entertainment? You want to take a few shots at $1 million? All right, then maybe you play in those millionaire makers. If you want to grind out a profit, you learn how to play cash games, 3-man, 5-mans, double ups, things like that. So we'll talk more and more about this as we grow here at Woodward Bets. But again, if you guys have any questions like that, we want to welcome the new players as well. We know it can be intimidating, some of the lingo and things, and just trying to jump in and learn. We want to be that place where you can learn the game safely and not get swallowed up by some of those sharks taking all your money. So please, any questions, reach out. We got a lot of support for the Lions here in the chat, Scott, as expected. Doubt says go Lions. Got Zaquan, go Lions. And Tribe said he's here in Cleveland for the game. So I hope he has a good time there. And the Lions at least give him a competitive game. All right, let's wrap it up, Scott. We're in on an hour here. So our last game, Arizona and Seattle. Seattle minus 2.5, 46 on the total. So no DeAndre Hopkins here for the Cardinals. I know there was some optimism about Kyler Murray, was sounding good throughout the week, but yesterday, this morning, the reports sound like he's going to miss another week here. So you brought up James Conner earlier, Scott, and I really, really like him. If Kyler Murray is in the lineup, he becomes probably my favorite running back on this slate, to be honest, when you're looking at ownership, things like that. But if it's Colt McCoy, well, now I have my concerns because Seattle can switch up the game plan and let's just stack the box against James Conner. We don't have to worry about DeAndre Hopkins. Are we really worried about A.J. Green, Christian Kirk, and Colt McCoy beating us? So kind of lessens my enthusiasm on Conner. I still think it's a guy that can find the end zone. He does it seemingly every single week. Seattle side, I love the bounce back here. Russell Wilson and company look terrible. So pairing him with one of those high-end wide receivers, I think is the way to go here. Always hate the double stack with Russ because both those guys never seem to get there together. But Russ with Lockett or Russ with Metcalf, I think is a phenomenal play this week. So last game, Scott, what are you doing in this one? Cardinals and Seahawks.
Yeah, I think this one is tough, especially with, like you mentioned, Murray, but I still like Connor. Seattle's just been one of those teams that have been pretty bad against running backs. They ranked 31st in points scored against the running backs. So, I mean, I think the upside maybe be a little bit limited without Murray, but I do think the floor is still there. I think, especially in cash games, he's a guy that you could probably fire up and feel pretty good about. But yeah, I do like your Russell Wilson call. I think this is a game here you're going to see Russell Wilson try to get. They're going to try to get him to be. They're going to try to get him right. Obviously, last week he had some errant passes when I was watching him. He didn't look all that great. But I mean, the Cardinals are pretty tough against wide receivers. So, Chris, with that being said, I think this game here looks like an under for me. I think the under here is a really good call, and that's something that I'm going to roll with because if Arizona has any success running the ball, I think that they're just going to keep pounding away. We've seen this over go from 50 down to 45.5. So a lot of people are agreeing with me. Maybe we missed the boat, Chris. Maybe it should be around 47. Maybe we're a little bit too late here with the under. But if I was going to lean anything, I think I'd lean Arizona in the under here.
All right. Yeah, I like Seattle in the spot. It's sounding like it's going to be Colt McCoy. I just don't see him leading an offense into Seattle. I know Seattle was terrible last week, but back at home, I think they get the ship righted here. So it looks like Seattle -3 now at most spots. There's still a 2.5 at BetMGM. So again, the importance of shopping around. The difference between a 2.5 and a 3, Scott, as you know, is massive. Now the game ends at a field goal. You're still in the mix there. So whenever you can find those little half points, things like that, you have to shop around and look at all the different places. So when you're betting, I advise having accounts at a few different places just to give yourself that opportunity. If you're only at 1, 2, you kind of limit your opportunities to go around. Be kind of like you only shop at Target, whatever. You got to give yourself different options, different price points when you're shopping for Christmas. Same thing here in the betting market. So that will wrap up the analysis here. Again, a little bit over an hour. So thank you guys for hanging out with us. But before we leave, Scott, we got to end the show with our favorite segment, our best bets segment here. We've given some leans. We've given some thoughts as we've gone along. Now it's time to put it on paper and give the people some winners. So what do you got? Lead us off here. Your best bets for this NFL Sunday.
Well, for one, I am going to start here with the Dolphins. You can get them at -3, -3.5. So I'm going to take the Dolphins here in this spot. And then I talked myself into the Myles Gaskin anytime touchdown, Chris, at -110. I'm going to roll with that one as well. And then my last one here today, Chris, that I really like, I'm just going to roll with Tennessee here, -10 against Houston. I don't think Houston stands any sort of chance. I think they're just going to run the ball down their throat. I like that. And then one bonus one, too, another one I do like Carolina, -3, 3.5 as well. So those are the ones that I got for you guys today.
All right, and then get them ready for a recap so we can give a nice, easy recap at the end. So line yours up while I add mine. I had a few I liked that were similar to yours, but I actually have quite a few I like today. So I'm going to try to give some different thoughts on some different games here. So I'm going to start with Buffalo -7 here. I like the Bills. I think their offense will find success as good as the Colts have been playing recently. I think Buffalo rolls in this spot. So give me Buffalo -7 to lead things off. I'm going to go with Philadelphia as well here. Let's see the best line I can find. There's some 2.5. So give me those 2.5s on Philly. I still don't mind the 3s as well. So give me those there. I like Seattle we'll just say -3 here. That's the majority of what you find. Again, there's a 2.5 sitting at BetMGM. So grab that while you can. So I like Seattle. And I'm going to go under in that Kansas City-Dallas game. So a lot of 56s out there, but I don't hate that even at 55.5. So again, for me, Buffalo -7 against the Indianapolis Colts. Philadelphia -3 at home against New Orleans. Seattle -3 at home against Arizona. And under 56 in that Kansas City-Dallas game. Scott, recap yours real quick here.
Best bets for today, I got the Dolphins -3. I'm going to stay in the same game with the anytime touchdown for Myles Gaskin -110. I got Carolina -3, and I'm going to finish it out with Tennessee -10. And Chris, we got to break them out. We got us some winners today. Let's go, winners! Winners!
Your left ain't working as good as your right, so I'm sure that's
usually the
problem
case
for you. Yeah, as I say, I'm sure that's normal, but we got to get that left firing on all cylinders as well. Don't forget about that one. So, guys, thank you so much for joining us again. We know you got a lot of choices out there to hang out and talk some football. A lot of great content out there. We appreciate you hanging out here with Scott and I here in the Woodward Bets crew. So. Good luck in all of your contests this week. If you're playing DFS, good luck in your season-long leagues. We gave you 8 best bets, so we'll check in tomorrow and see how it goes. So narrow that down. You don't want to bet too many games. Find your 2, 3, 4 that you really like and go that route. Spreading yourself too thin, not the way to go in the betting market. So best of luck with all your bets. Enjoy the football today, guys. For Scott, who do we have behind the glass today, Scott? I always forget on Sundays.
We got Kareem the Dream.
Kareem, I'm going to remember eventually. One of these Sundays, I'm going to get it right. So for Scott, for our boy Kareem behind the glass, I am Beer. We are Woodward Bets. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Enjoy the football. Good luck in your fantasy and your betting contest, and we'll see you tomorrow.